Good evening, folks, and welcome to another session from the Wise Asylum. Good grief. It's all going on, in it. Oh, my word. Can you hear it? Boris, come back. We need you. And everybody wants Boris the blonde bombshell back. Well. I don't know. I mean, have you not realised yet that the WF is just a mouthpiece for the billionaires? And of course, Boris is the billionaire's choice. Is he not? I put a good one up on the old face ache the other day. Old school journalist telling you exactly how it is. I mean, and he used to work for Boris at the Spectator, and he liked him when he were a libertarian. And he's suggesting he's gone a little bit racist as well. So we're all working in tune with the full turnaround that's about to kick off, especially when the United States goes to the old ballot box. It's all going to go very right wing. It's all going to go very Schofield notes believers, innit? That's where it's going now. And you want Boris, and even Zelensky wants Boris back, which has prompted some politicians to get a bit upset with Zelensky and said, "Don't you interfere in our politics." Meanwhile, you're arming the living shit out of Zelensky in Ukraine. So a bit like that. Claiming to be democratic and pushing democracy when really you couldn't give a living shit about that because they're all being told what to do by the likes of George Soros and the Billionaire Club. It's quite astonishing, really, that it's come to this. But on balance, I've looked at it and I thought, well, they got that Starmer. I mean, he's just an absolute boring, miserable, typical communist. Sat in back rooms with smoke and in dark because he knows he's up to no good. Kind of I wouldn't want to see country go to shit with him leading it. But with Boris, country's going to go to shit while he's only up with a cocktail. I'd rather have that image in my mind while they deconstruct old Blighty. So, I don't know. It's just quite ridiculous, isn't it? But yeah, I'm good for Boris. I like Boris. He's a complete dick. The blonde bombshell is the best face to take us through the destruction of the old nation. So why not? Why not, Boris? Return of the Jedi. They won't Luke. He needs him back. They'll force. That's that little rant over with, thank God. But there's not really much point talking about it, is there really? It's a shit show. It's an absolute shit show. And if you can't see that our politics is just completely out of not only our control, but the politicians' control. So we're going to have to look now who they're going to get back in. Because if we look at Boris's cabinet, we're basically thumbs up by the billionaires. So he's going to push them back in. I mean, young man that's just been put in on Chancellor, he's not going to last 2 seconds, is it, if Boris the bombshell comes back? They might do have a twist. They might have, instead of Boris, because they don't care whether Boris is Prime Minister or indeed Chancellor. We're talking billionaires here, so it could be Boris the Chancellor, Sunak the Prime Minister. Yeah, and now that wouldn't be a nice face to see country go to shit on, and to be honest. It wouldn't do well for race relations, would it? Let's be honest. No, that's probably not a good idea. Let's stick to Boris. Boris knows what he's doing. Everybody knows he's a complete twat, and he'll do whatever he's told. Even tell you to get it kennel when it suits him. So I'm not really impressed with that. But remember, whoever comes back in, they still have no contract with you. This is just a Tory shindig. Boris, we voted in on a mandate. If he comes back, does he have a mandate? Well, Mr. Shuri actually does. So what have we got in the house? Because I failed to acknowledge it last week. I was excited. You probably gathered that. I was a little bit excited last week. But I'm not excited this week. I'm just chilling. And we'll just have a nice little jaunt through a bit of nonsense, shenanigans. And we'll have a look a bit of law. Why not, indeed. So Paul says, good evening. Good evening to you. Debbie, good evening. Mew, good evening. Slipknot. Alright, Trevor, how you doing? Hey, Paul. L13 to M3. He went to the Bullingdon Club. They all do. Yeah, exactly. And they're all operating the fag system. And it would appear that Boris, the old bombshell, were a bit more high up in that little shindig than even Cameron. So, anyway, from the American one, all goes to Eden. It's public boys, a lot of them. Well, isn't that basically what's took over the entire system? It's the faggots, the fag system. Because that's, obviously its original name, but with homosexual connotations in that sometimes these fags had to do naughty things to the master. So, but I'm always talking about it when I'm talking about the fag. It's this hoity-toits. The hoity-toits running the show on behalf of the billionaires. The Billionaire Club. They've also hijacked Charlie Boy. He's up in Scotland, Airtech Road, keeping quiet while they start to enact all the garbage that we looked through last week. It's just outrageous, isn't it? So we have a few bits to look at on law and just a bit more to add to what I've been saying about the fact that the whatever garbage they've come up with, UK or Great Britain, isn't really an entity in relation to nation and thus doesn't supersede neither the throne of Scotland or the throne of England. And we have discussed the Act of Union being the very corporation that was set up to administer that bankruptcy of the amalgamation of the two thrones in order they can get our assets off into Vatican in readiness for it all to shift to China. Xi's just got another 5 years. Interesting, just before he got in, at this meeting they were having, the previous president were basically marched out of the room. Obviously he had something to say that they didn't want anybody to hear. And I know that apparently the Chinese media hasn't touched this, so that Chinese people are not aware of that. We do have a little bit of let's have a look. We can have a little look at that. Oh, well, that's not working. So that's rubbish. So wait a minute. So window capture. Let's go back over here. Oh, it should be working. So I've just sat about with all this thinking how amazing and fantastic. And it's not happened. So that should transition. Now we've transitioned. Oh my god, I've lost my little image, it's gone. Oh, well, that's good. You want to look at my ugly mush? Well, we have a little look. So, it says, former China president abruptly escorted from party congress. The former leader of the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, was ushered from his seat beside General Secretary Xi Jinping during the final session of the 20th National Congress on Saturday. Midway through the otherwise carefully choreographed closing session, Hu Jintao, 79, Xi Jinping's immediate predecessor, was helped out of his chair next to Mr. Xi and inexplicably led out of the hall. And you can pretty much see there that he's not happy. He's certainly not gone on his own will, this guy. So they're saying basically he's been saying he worked so well in Pula, but that doesn't look like in Pula to me. That looks like Xi wanted him out there, quick shot, before he grassed him up. So we don't have to get too excited about that, but yeah, all's not well in the old China. It's not well at all. My gosh. So anyway, enough of that nonsense. So also, Xi said, and I don't think he'd say this if it didn't have some kind of reality behind it, but that the majority of the Taiwanese people actually want to go back to China. Now, I don't know whether that's correct or not. It'd be interesting to, if anybody does know anything about that kind of malarkey, get it up on here. Otherwise, I'm going to have to look at that this week. But if that's the case, then what the hell's going on with Taiwan? You know, as a semiconductor producer, having problems now getting sand because it's been sort of blockaded by China and it can't now get it from Australia. So China on one hand stopping Taiwan in its semiconductors, and now Biden's issued the order, everybody get out of China or you lose your US citizenship, or basically stop working for these companies. So that's going to put China in a bit of a mess. So what they're going to do with this Taiwan, because it's blockaded, so that's not even making any semiconductors, as we discussed a few weeks ago. So it's quite odd what's going on, and Biden, you could say, well, oh, he's just get his dick out, you know what I mean? My dick's bigger than yours, China. But then when you look at it and we consider what we've already looked at, in that the priesthood itself is running all these muppets, then are they not at the highest levels actually forcing this Third World War in that manner? And of course Biden, full on blown Vatican connected, as is Trump. So it's no change there, Gov, apart from you're moving us closer and closer to this Third World War. And same with the Ukraine. Although there's some odd stuff coming out of Ukraine this week, it's mixed messages from America. One, Petraeus is giving it the big, oh, we might get in there and kick your ass, blah, 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 blah. You've got others saying basically, you know, if Russia continues to go at it like it has done this week, because it's gone apeshit, its 29 targets for missiles has gone right out the window, and they're firing missiles all over the shore. Few Ukrainians have no bloody electric, which is quite shocking. He's not having as much luck with his recruitment of all his ex-military guys. They're even having to buy their own gear. So that's not gone as well as he thought. Although we did discuss last week, the figure was that he has achieved 220,000 of his 300,000 total. But it's looking like old Vlad there has got himself in a bit of a pickle. And he's going Alpha Leather now. Well, that's going to end, I don't know. But when you've got Petraeus saying, look, we might just jump in there, not with NATO, but with, what does he use, the willing forces to jump in there and just be American-led and start having it with old Vlad. Now, if Boris gets back in, it's them willing allies is going to be buzz monkeys, isn't it? Let's be honest, that's Boris's forte. He stopped the war from ending in March, 4 weeks in. No wonder Zelensky wants Boris, the blown bombshell, back in. So yeah, interesting stuff going on, but it doesn't look very good, to be honest. It really doesn't look very good what's ramping up here with all this warmongering shit. They seem to be hell-bent on having it. Europeans are still up their arse. No gas, now they're talking about... So Turkey's now. So you're going to get Russian gas via Turkey to Europe. There's another option. I thought the idea of corporatism would cut out the middleman. These billionaires seem to be backtracking a little bit there. But of course they never backtrack if it's not going to ultimately suit them. But of course, knocking off a load of Europeans, that's good for them, isn't it? That's part of the game. I've murmurs that we might be having a mild winter this year, which would be bloody good, because it looks like there's going to be trouble coming out of every orifice. Even though we only get 4% of our oil from actual Russia, we still have to be loading up with gas. But I'm pretty sure after this November session in America, and it starts to really ramp up on the right, in order that they can pull us into the no-hide without anybody giving a shit. Because, you know, it's going to be interesting what happens as it goes right, because the right can't then just jump straight into its extremities and start pumping out Zionist law against everybody. It would have to be a smooth set, probably even massaging the masses of people to get comfortable, think everything's groovy and fantastic, and off we go again. You know, but that's not the plan. It's certainly not the plan at all. But I certainly can't see him just going from 0 to 60 right-wing Armageddon mode, no matter what. I think there's got to be a slower sort of movement from the uber left to the uber right in order to keep people on side. So that's another interesting load of nonsense. But, I mean, Putin is now not really acting... It looks like he's worried now. I think he's out of his depth, to be honest. Never mind NATO forces, but if you're actually aware of the size of the United States military and navy, it's just beyond comprehension. It's beyond comprehension. I mean, I grew up, you know, swooning over our military because we had a lot then. We had a lot of stuff, and we had a navy. You know, you could swoon over our own little ships, but little ships is exactly. I mean, we don't have that many now. When you compare this. I mean, America are working on fleets. Now, we might have one fleet as a navy. They've got like 8 or 9 fleets, is it? Or something stupid like that. And each of these fleets has got more than British Army, Navy and RAF combined. Each fleet, you know. Probably even European forces included as well. The United States military is huge. It's absolutely huge. And regardless of what everybody says, you know, America has its own mineral wealth of all description. You know, America's not going to not be able to make its munitions anytime short. You know what I mean? If America went into war mode, it'd be full-on war mode. I mean, we might struggle a little bit. Seems that we sold all our steel industry to British Raj side of things and charters over there in India. So it's not really the superpowers that, or at least America, that's really going to be affected by any kind of war. I mean, it's just, and I think maybe Vlad's started to realise his impalings might not have gone down as well as he thought. So I don't know. It's interesting things going on. Better the devil you know. Well, they're all devils, but yeah, you're quite right. He's got that face for it, hasn't he? He's just got that cheeky mug. And then the blonde bombshell side of it as well. And he's like, you know, he's getting pissed. I mean, he's had parties when he weren't allowed to, because you were in kennel. But you see, I laughed at that because, you know, from that perspective, it's only because you all took it too seriously and believed it that, you know, you were insanely angry at the fact that Boris were like, well, I didn't say I was doing it. Well, they didn't, did he? He didn't say, and I'm going to go in the kennel. He said, you get in the kennel. You remember that, you know? You did. He didn't. And I don't blame him, because I didn't either. I never got in any kennel or anything like that. It just passed me by like it weren't even happening. Or just so I couldn't go to my favourite restaurants, because they'd all shit themselves as well. So, I mean, I just laughed at that. I know, but the anger that we're pouring out on, because Boris had a pint and a few of his mates round, when if you weren't having a pint and having a few of your mates round, you need to be analysing what kind of character have you become. Not Boris. Boris is just carrying on. He's just an English lad, isn't he? Cart on, get pissed. It's all good laugh and all good fun. You should really have aimed your anger at yourself for actually being stupid enough to follow it. That'd be my opinion, you know, because it didn't bother me in the slightest that Boris were getting pissed. I'd have expected nothing else, and there were a lot of people that ignored it as well, and they obviously didn't give a shit either, because they were the same. We were laughing, like, yeah, this is just a big joke. But there's a lot of people, they're not getting it. Well, fair dues. There's not really much you can say to that. So really, you know, his only sin is being a spawn of the devil. It's no worse than any others, really. You know, if we think about it, is it? Anyway, what you're saying, the world is but a state. Well, it is. It's all theatre and it's absolute nonsense. And it's because of the word wizardry. People do not understand the words either being spoken or that they're reading. They don't see the context of it. And this is how they've just run riot for 200 years. At least. Just, you know, keeping people below par. And then they're using the word wizardry. Here presto. They tell you what they're doing, but you haven't heard that. Because you're watching the act and not the play. As it were. So I just think it's hilarious, to be quite honest. It is, it's hilarious. I think it really does look bleak. Yeah, they've been doing this for God knows how long, haven't they? I mean, has it ever been any different? At least, definitely since Civil War. Cromwell's Commonwealth of Puritans taking over, and because people forget, well, they don't even know. You weren't allowed to drink. You weren't allowed to go pub. Yeah, exactly. That is the mindset. And what did Hitler do? Exactly the same. Napoleon did the same. And Napoleon weren't even French. He was Corsican. Where did all the Jesuits go? And they were kicked out. They went to Corsica. So obviously, we know what kind of atmosphere was going on in Corsica in that time. So it all comes out of the same mindset. You know? Hello, mate. Oh, by the way, I know I've had some emails this week, but I've had tons this week, and I haven't even really gone through any yet. So my apologies if I've not got back to you. I will do. So you don't think it's Penny, Sean? I don't actually know much about her, to be honest. I don't know. What do we know about Penny? Because I don't actually know much about her. Is she a bit of a good one? If she is, she doesn't stand a chance, does she? I mean, look, so you can see, you know, the billionaires did warn everybody before you all started shouting at Boris for having a party because you have been grounded. I mean, think of it like that. How many times were you grounded as a kid, but your mum and dad were still out getting pissed at weekend? You didn't sack them, you didn't want them out, did you? You didn't want to vote your mum and dad out because they were feeding you. But it's the same kind of thing. The children were grounded while the grown-ups played out. That's basically what happened. And honestly, it never bothered me in the slightest. And everybody was so pissed off and, oh! And I just used to laugh because I couldn't help it because I was laughing at the fact that I understood why they were so angry because they were grounded and mummy and daddy were out playing. So yeah, I don't know anything about her. Is she a good one? A good devil? Is she only half-baked devil? Not fully bludgeoned by the evil penis up the backside. So I know on that view, I know nothing about her, to be fair. I don't actually take much notice of politics. If I'm looking at it, it's just to get headlines, and then I might have a little look to see what nonsense I can piddle out. But I'm not actually interested in the politics because I don't see myself as subservient to anything they do. Do you know what I'm saying? It's just a shit show, and unfortunately, it's a shit show that's causing havoc all over the show. But I just try and meander around it, and I really don't care less because until the people stop voting them in, or at least start to bring them to book and have them acting according to their own bloody rules, it's just going to keep going, innit? So Ray's very clear, Boris will not be back. Well, we'll have to wait and see. He made his Cincinnati speech, didn't he? And I did say then, he's left itself open. But, as I was saying before, the billionaires made clear that if you're getting rid of Boris, we're going to pull out. Look what happened. Look what happened. I mean, okay, Liz Truss for me were just a pointless exercise. However, not really, because it wouldn't have mattered who we're in. With what happened through the donors and the power moves in the economy, because of course the same priesthood runs it all, it would have happened anyway, because that's what they said they were going to do. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does come back. I really wouldn't, because there's no law says he can't. Anybody can run from the party for, you get 100 votes, 100 people on side, you can move and go for leadership. So I don't know. I would say he probably is. I think even though the majority of the population would cross at him for grounding him and playing out, you know, when you look at what you've got Starmer. I mean, what is that if not another Boris? Is your Crown operative, Privy Council, which we'll have a look at in a minute, because the Privy Council appear to be the cabinet. And it's been a known fact, I think, through the last month. So the Privy Council is the cabinet, or it's controlling. So it's the billionaires controlling the Privy Council. So we will have a look at that in a minute. So I don't know about Penny. Boris is gone, I would say. We'll have to wait and see. I know that a big majority of the Tory massive wanted him to stay, but people were just so angry. They were blind on anger, not realising that it was worse than Boris. But like I said, it doesn't matter who it is. They're not contracted to anybody, are they? You could get away with holding Boris to Brexit, but he already got scuppered with that when they prevented him from closing down Parliament, or prorogue Parliament for 5 weeks to sign it off without a deal. Who were that? Them acting as Supreme Court, which is really the corporate phase of the King's Bench, which is dealing with law and the system. So the Supreme Court, by the definition of its name, shows you that it's a shade of. It's not the King's Bench. You know, people need to be. I mean, where are all you barristers? You know, I know you're tied to the bar, but have you no brain? Have you no eyes and ears to see? Are you so enveloped in needing to be told what to do that you can't just get off your own back and just start putting some law in. You only have to get onto Blackstone and Co. There's your law. There's England, you know. And you know, Acts Union, as we were saying before, that with a corporate body set up, the Acts Union, in order to administer the bankruptcy in 1799, tying both Scotland and England into this Schofield note-believing priesthood. So we're going to have a look in a minute, because as much so what they've done with devolution or independence, let's say, what we all want, both Scottish and English, is our crowns to be independent again, thus getting rid of this idea of UK, Great Britain, the Act of Union. That's all we need to get rid of, the Act of Union. Because William and Mary, when they were setting this thing up in England, it also a similar was set up in Scotland. So we still, by removing Great Britain, we get back our realms, rather than having it hijacked by this shadow corporate thing called UK Great Britain. Which is why I keep saying, you if you'd have known that knowledge, and I was screaming about it from get-go, UK Independence Party, they're telling you exactly what they are. They've nothing to do with England, they've nothing to do with Scotland, and nothing to do with Northern Ireland. It were everything to do with the UK, the corporation, wants independence from you. So Farage, for all his rhetoric, and he's good at it, is another spawn of the devil. George Galloway, as I call him, Lawrence of Bradford. You know, great rhetoricist, excellent in every way. Nobody can take that away from him, and I wouldn't try. But I know what he were covering when he were over there in Bradford, and that was the importation, wholesale, of Taliban, or Pashtun, from Afghanistan, working going straight into police intelligence, straight into these roles that they were acting for NATO while they were in Afghanistan. Yeah, this is how you take over nation systems. Because they don't act for you, do they? They're sort of beholden to all the militarised things, the security systems. You know, this is what's been going on, and George Galloway covered that, all of it. You know, and I got this data from my Muslim friends then, because we had a mate that came over from Bradford quite often, and he was saying that they killed all the local Muslim drug dealers and took over the entire drug trade from Bradford, and this was the Taliban or Mujahideen kind of mindset, yeah, or Pashtun as they're called. Now that doesn't mean to say everybody from Afghanistan is operating in that capacity, but that the mindset that they were living in Afghanistan, and they obviously got then involved with NATO forces operating against the Taliban as they would see it, because they were trying to keep it for themselves. So that's their mindset. So it's not, you know, it's just let's have a look and put facts on the table rather than fanny around obfuscating what is really happening. You know, you've got all this Indian influx, and I'm not talking about people that have been here years and born here and that. You know, that's part of our society. But all these that have been coming over illegally and then going through the university courses that they had going. A lot of them came in, and their way of business is odd. But they're part of the British Raj, so again, they're the operatives for this phantom system that's parading as the real throne of both England and Scotland. It's not how it is. So Scotland, they've sort of hijacked the narrative on independence and turned it into a political thing, when really it's nothing to do with that. The only thing that needs to become independent again, because that's how we work together, is the rid of the idea of Great Britain and the idea of UK. Because Scotland needs to be Scotland, England needs to be England, and Wales is a nation and it's full of Welsh people, and I don't have a problem with Wales being Wales. I really don't. I think they could lessen the tone in relation to still holding on to the ancient idea that we're all separate, you know what I mean? That's not working well. It does work well into the idea of devolution, again, just dividing the British Isles up. Because if you divide it, it's far easier for the priesthood to manipulate it, whatever way they see fit. But it's important that we stay together, because the North Sea oil, we need it, not just Scotland, we all need it here on the British Isles. So it wouldn't be in our interest to divide up politically. Or maybe just let's get us back to our realms, and then each realm can configure itself back in tune with our law, our constitutional laws, yeah, rather than carrying on with this pish. Because we have industry here still. We could soon, if we went into that mode, we could go back to manufacturing. We might struggle getting some materials, but I'm pretty sure our American brothers and sisters would be happy to supply us with whatever we wanted. Not only that, Europe's on its arse. It could kickstart that again in Europe, because as it stands, China pretty much manufactures a lot of the things that we need. Israel have got all the tech in all our domestic systems, down to your electricity grid, gas, your airways, your mobile tech, your computer tech, your internet, all our systems that work now on computer systems. Israel's controlling it all, because they have the back doors in all our chips, in everything. The processors from 7, maybe 8 years ago, all the processors, I can't remember its name, I do have a report on site, but all the new Intel chips were coming in with back doors or another. So the chips that we all take for granted have another chip inside them, a processor, only accessible from the network. So this week I've been thinking, because there's a guy that I have been aware of for years, but never really seemed to come across his stuff. But recently I've been looking at his stuff. So he's been making videos, and I forgot his name. He's an Australian guy. So I subscribed to his channel, and I've been listening to some of his stuff. And this guy's, he's right on the button, because this is what we were sort of all investigating 5, 6, 10 years ago. Then it just get lost, because you're onto other stuff. But this is what we do need to be reminded. All the tech now is fully under the control of these networks that are attached to the Schofield note believers. And they can hold us all to ransom. They can switch off our energy grid whenever they want. They could shut down our militaries in an instant. All your drones. The whole systems now that are based in tech can be basically completely controlled or held to ransom by this network. So I've been thinking, the temple. Have we been misunderstanding the temple? The third temple? Because we all have this picture now that is guys that pass with wood and axes. Then you've got this stone one now that they've got built, set up, ready in pieces to go as soon as mosque is knocked off. But I think this week, and I just thought to myself, no. So the old term temple describes our body, doesn't it? That's how it is. So your church and all that are offshoots from that reality, how the term temple was actually originally used. So a temple is it's a complete, fully functioning system, innit? If you get my meaning. So the world is a functioning system, but it's diverse, and power has never really been, or probably has in the past, but way past. You could be class it as one whole complete system. So, but through this tech, through the know-hide, through the fact they've got everybody on Earth almost pissed and drunk with absolute garbage, and then believing Cyril Schofield's notes, as opposed to the actual book that you claim to be looking at. It's a complete, fully functioning system. It's a temple of all temples, isn't it? So maybe we should start looking at the images that they've been presented to us through history all the time, when we look back on ancient times, with the sandals on and the little robes and what have you. No, it's a control system, isn't it? The temple. It's a control system, as opposed to one little building sat up on a rock with a few guys with mushroom hats on, giving it large and dangly things. It's more than that, I've been thinking this week. And so I'm starting to think that this temple, the third temple, is this no-hide, control of the tech, the ability to put all these nations to war, the ability to completely control your political class and system, completely control your monarchic system. That's a temple. So that's where I'm at with that now. As an epiphany this week, as Saturn moves forward. So if you've all been having a bit of a shit time, you've just been mopping up on a bit of karma. Now Saturn goes forward. There's quite a few planets to bet. There's 3 gone forward, and I think there's a few more going forward. So next couple of days might be a bit intense as you shift from that pulled in to focus and cleanse into this next phase, because you're going to need to be a bit brighter in yourself to work through what you're going to start shoving down your necks now, as they obfuscate what they're actually really doing here and in America in relation to shifting us into this ultra right-wing Schofield believing insanity. So they're working hard, chaps, and not necessarily on the subject matter that they're presenting through the media. Cameron too. Cameron, he could, but he would never do that. I don't think he were comfy in it, really. He probably were towards the end, but I mean, I give him some hell, mate. Honestly, I did. And before they come and hit me, I got the dream I had was Cameron. Who else were it? Cameron and one up Grandees. God, it was strange. Yeah, I'd been pulled into a car. There's Cameron and another Al Grandee in the car. And I can't remember that one because it's a long time ago, 2014. But it were odd. And then lo and behold, boom, they came on. Then another time they hit me. The faces I had in my dream were Trump and Pence. But we were all naked. And I don't know why. I don't understand the symbolism of that. And then they hit me again when Trump were in. And that were another one. So I always get a warning if the powers that be are going to give me a thump. But that were an odd one with Cameron. I mean, it was strange, really. Because we're the same age, you know what I mean? Same with Boris. I'm the same age as them guys. We're all like, yeah, same kind of shindig. But just odd. But that Trump and Pence were exceptionally odd because we were all naked. And I'm not going to go into it, but it was weird. No shenanigans like that, but it was just so... I couldn't grasp the symbolism of why it were sort of a dream and it were near. I didn't get it. There probably is a meaning to it, and I just couldn't be asked to suss it, but interesting. Boris never left. It was a sub... Well, if the subterfuge has been, it's been that now he's not actually contracted to what you voted him in on, is it? So that could be the only shindig they're doing. And of course, was that just a ploy to make us think, oh, you get rid of Boris, you're going to go back into Europe? Or is it really the agenda? Now, I think, well, so let's say I were going for Prime Minister, right? So these are the kind of things that I'd be looking to do immediately. And that is, I'd suspend the ECHR, so the European Covenant on Human Rights, immediately. That would be suspended and then invest. But you just suspend that because it would ultimately have to go. Because that's what stops us having control of our borders and a lot of other things, human rights kind of things, that we wouldn't accept as a human right. If you're going to be an arsehole, if you're coming in here and you're going to play subterfuge, you know what I'm saying? No, there's no, you've lost your human rights. A, you're illegal, so you haven't earned them yet, you know? But more importantly, if you've come in here to start causing problems, no. So that'd be the first thing I'd do. I'd suspend all the sanctions against Russia from this country immediately. Because the role of the government is to work in the favour. Because they're the trustees of the realm and they have to work always to benefit the realm. Of course, the realm that they're benefiting now as these trustees isn't our realm because they don't tell you that. It's the corporate realm, the shadows, the Supreme Court, yeah. The bankrupt government corporation, etc., etc. The DWP instead of the Department of Social Security, Health and Social Security, which still exists. And see, this is another thing as well that we'll get into this another time. But the old departments exist, and there's a politician liable for everything. The offshoots, the like DWP, DVLA, because that's another corporate offshoot Department of Transport, they're actually still responsible for it. Now, we did get into it a little bit earlier in the year, but then obviously we didn't pursue it. But these are the sort of things that we need to consider. That the actual Department of State still exists, and there's a guy there liable. So rather than it's in DWP playing in the FOI and all that shindig, go direct to that. But again, this is the important part with this, and this is where it gets exciting when you start getting into that shenanigans. There's different offices that they obfuscate, and until you get the right one, you can't serve the correct thing. I think that's why we left it off, actually, because we'd come to that conclusion and realised it was going to be quite a big do to sort of get our act together and start pissing down that leg. But that ultimately is the way to go about it if you want to get some kind of action. You want to hold people liable, then rather than play with the nonsense DWP, DVLA, just go to Department of Transport, Department for Health and Social Security, as it used to be. And then you're eating Whitehall, because of course you've got to remember these Whitehall shitbags, they stay there forever. I mean, we could still have people in Whitehall running show that we're alive in Second World War. You know, they still don't think they're under Bomber Harris. But you know what I'm saying? And you watch the auditors, all these militia auditors we've got all over the country. The police are really shitting themselves now because they know there's drones going up, all sorts. And, you know, these auditors are really showing you that this foreign force on the land, the police, are nearly now starting to explain that with you when they say you're on private property. Yeah? You only fund them by what, 12-15% is it on council tax? You with me? So these are the important things that need to be addressed. So this is the way the thought patterns have to go. Forget the lower ranking corporate charitable governance trusts everywhere. Because you're just going to get wrapped up. You might as well go to the magistrates court. You might as well go into the state, into Whitehall, look for the actual departments under which these fuck-ass twat faggots are actually operating for, yeah? And then you start to, it makes sense then. And we should have continued that, but I know we're all busy. Everybody's got things to do, and it would take some serious play finding the correct office. So yeah, that's another, went off track there. I don't know what we're actually talking about. Right. Let's have a look. Oh, of course, yeah, Pesco. Yeah. So whoever's coming in, Boris and... now then, that's an interesting one, isn't it? I've not thought of that. That's interesting, because we're still tied to ECHR, right? Because the Supreme Court, which is pretending to be the King's Bench, stopped him from proroguing Parliament. And this little shitbag has signed up to us to PESCO. The two being the main ones is militarily and also financial. So obviously they'd wake up the sheep, wouldn't it, if they went finance. Said, oh, you're all like Euro tomorrow. There'd be riots. You know what I'm saying? But that, now how clever is that? Now, is that the ruse? Who's put that up there? Paul Sefton, you absolute genius. I will bet you a $1. That is exactly what this little ruse has been about. If Boris gets back in, or Boris is Chancellor, because they only need him as Chancellor. I think they probably need him more as Prime Minister, because he's so slick at dealing with this but more importantly, back end with all these big BlackRock, Marshall Wace, or all these big corporate monsters, Oracle, that these billionaires control, all out of Adelphi House, which is the John Adams Street gang, which I've put up many times for you to look at. It's quite phenomenal. Well said, that man. Yeah, that is exactly, yeah. So, if Boris gets back in, because he's the Brexit man, we're still in ECHR, and now this trust woman's put us on PESCO. How clever. So instead of going into Brexit, we've moved back a shot. And Boris is innocent. Boris the bombshell, the Jedi Knight, is innocent. Oh my word. See how clever we are. We all think together, and just excellent, Paul, that, because I'm not even into my head. That is absolutely super there. Yeah, trust signs into Pesco. Troops now under EU control. Exactly. Are they not all claims? Well, of course they are. Absolutely. But, I mean, there are some in there that probably ain't shock of their life. But the whip system just prevents anybody. You see, the problem is, so that's another point that this guy made, this journalist, about why our political system has been co-opted by the billionaires. And let's just think back to when we were kids. There were a massive Labour Party movement, paying money, into the Labour Party. There were a massive Conservative political party, everybody putting money in. Nobody gives a shit anymore. Nobody's a part of a political party anymore. Where do they get the money from? Now, this is where James Goldsmith, moving on to Farage, this is where the play were coming in relation to starting to dismantle the Conservative massive while controlling the Eurosceptics. And this were pulled together by a Schofield Bible note-believing priesthood member called Eric Beckoff, who we outed and exposed quite well way back in the day. And surprise, surprise, Cameron, because we weren't expecting this. We'd done that years before. Maybe not years before, a couple of years before. Cameron's 2010 conference, and at the end of it, he's bigging up this guy. And who, without this guy, there would be no Conservative Party. And we've been looking into this Harry Beckoff because he was controlling the UKIP massive. He were handling Farage. He were at Bletchley House and all that. But this guy were a Russian-German Jewish guy. Let's just say that he acknowledged our efforts as being correct, let's put it that way. He did give us the nod and the wink, which they do, these guys, you know what I mean? If you out them and they'll play. Mason sometimes send me white gloves. If obviously I'm saying something that they agree with, that's fine, I'll get a nod. It doesn't mean I'm a Mason, but this is how these societies, they do listen to nut jobs like me. Not because we're, because we're part of the clan, but we're fantastic and amazing. Them are my pronouns, So if you don't call me fantastic and amazing, I'll be offended. I'm telling my mum, and I'll ring the police. Because them are my pronouns, and that I'm sticking to them. You know what I'm saying? So that's that. What were I hell around about? I can't even remember. So I have info on Starmer, who was DPP, and said we are unaccountable. We are accountable. Well, that's good, because he also was the guy that stopped the investigation into Jimmy Savile when he was the head of the CPS. So we know what kind of character he is, don't we? Elle says, evening to you, Elle. Guitar Girl, it's nice to watch the theatre as we grow in spirit. Well, it is, but with options, either people, as much as it berates me to say it, if we don't get involved, billionaires control it. Do you know what I'm saying? It's a bit of a catch-22, isn't it? Our system's there. They're going to do away with the monarch if they can, as far as upholding England. This is a time where we need to... It's a make or break, really, isn't it? If people can't be asked and they just want to sit down, watch telly, go to shop, get back quick so they can sit down and watch telly, make tea, sit down quick so they can watch telly, make a brew, sit down quick, have a look on Facebook, sit and then go to bed, get up, quick go to the shop, we forgot, watch telly. Now, if that's your life, then the reason why we're in this mess is because of that. So it's that's going to have to change, isn't it? Everybody's arguing up to, oh, well, they need to do this and they need to do that, they must change it. Well, really, the change that needs to occur is that we start to actually give a shit. You know, you've got Reform out there. They're a political party. I don't know much about them, but I do have a colleague who is on board with Reform. As I said, I'm not promoting anybody here, but you've got all these various, this independent kind of stuff. I mean, if you're going as independent, surely the whip system can't affect you. Surely not. How can a whip system affect an independent? I would be interesting to look at. So maybe independence could be the way, and start pulling us back to representing our borough. Because until we do that, you're not going to untie the financial side of things, where local collects local taxes for local stuff. Like Ironburn, for instance, it's not a huge place. It's a mix of Accrington, Rishton, Great Harwood, Clayton, Baxenden, and Aslington, and Oswaldtwistle. And so that mix there makes up what they call Ironburn Council. Ironburn Council pull in £47 million per year just on council tax. You'll be lucky if they spend £2 million on you. They probably pull another £4 million for their own salaries at the executive. And the councillors are a complete and utter waste of shit. And the only ones that have a bit of snouse about them are already edged up the arses of the local networks, i.e. Labour Massive, which is Jack Straw, the super communist pig, or the Conservatives. I don't know actually who does run them around here, to be honest. But that's pretty much it, and they just shut up and do what they're told. They don't actually do, and there's no function really, apart from getting in paper and looking good with a shovel, picking dog shit up, and moaning about litter, and moaning and pretty much moaning. In fact, if you look at it, the councillors actually do the moaning, but they don't actually do any effort. Have you noticed that? They've actually become the group mourners for you. Yeah. So, you know, if we don't start looking at it like that and start going, hey, come here, you little bugger, what the hell are you playing at? You know, give them a... Is it going to change? No, we're just going to have to sit back and watch this theatre at the top, right back down to your local. But 47 million I've been collecting council tax. And I'll bet they're not paying 2 million back in on the actual population. 47 million quid. I could do a lot in this town with 47 million quid, I can assure you. And not only that, I'd employ everybody local. So all these roads would get fixed and there'd be local lads employed doing it. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah? It's just ridiculous. So, suspensions against the sanctions of Russia, I'd do that immediately, because that's not serving the country. Job of the government is to benefit the realm. Sanctioning Russia is clearly not benefiting the realm, is it? I'd suspend the ascension of Charles Windsor with immediate effect. Immediate effect. I would seize all the property of the Church of England and place it in a trust. Right? Because the Church of England shouldn't own anything on this land. Especially now we can see that it's only in order it can hand it straight through to the Vatican Bank. So that'd get seized immediately, and I'd open a full investigation into the Church of England hierarchy, present and past. Alright? Immediate effect. Full-blown investigation into the church hierarchy. I'd investigate the real authority of Parliament, not according to their own fantasy, but according to law, because they're not sovereign. They've never been sovereign. The only sovereignty afforded in this nation is to the office of monarch. And we afford it that sovereignty in order it acts within the realm and nothing else. If it's not acting within the realm, it hasn't got our sovereignty. It's treason. Yeah? I'd seize all Vatican property on these islands and place that into a trust as well, with immediate effect. Political correctness would be abolished with immediate effect in the schools, in politics, and probably that's the only real places you need to remove it. It would be removed immediately. I'd remove immediately these. Oh no. Wait a minute. Yeah. So political correctness will be abolished in the schools, in the politics, in the police, and in the military. 100% absolute. And this nation, the military will go back to its system, 1987, because that's when they started to change it. 1987, 88, that's when they start. So the military will go right back to its protocols of 1987 in an instant. Reintroduce the IQ levels for police. The police college would be under investigation because we know through questions we've asked that they don't teach the police the difference between man and person. They're not teaching them this. Alright, they're liable for that. That's treason. Yeah, because they're being taught contrary to the realm. All paperwork issued to immigrants for the last 30 years, maybe, would be revoked with immediate effect. Okay? You come in here illegal, you've already broke the main rule. So all paperwork that's been given by the private corporation, the police, which is what your auditors need to crack on with. Listen, when they're asking you what you're doing, just say, oh, well, we've realised that we have a duty to service law, and we've also realised that you are actually a foreign entity, a private corporation, on the land of England. The 9 principles of law enforcement have us duty bound to investigate you and see if we need to enforce law against you. Because that is the real situation when it comes to police. They're only there for the service of law, in spite of policy and in spite of public opinion. Alright? So they don't dance around you if you're going, you're racist, you're racist. If you've been bumming somebody or you've been selling something you shouldn't to kids, you've no human rights and you might want to shut your goal, kind of thing. Let's get it back to that kind of stuff. The reinstitution of mints here on these lands and the suspension of all contracts with the Bank of England. So that's what I'd be looking to do. And a complete and utter full investigation into corporate education and all the governors and head teachers since 1997. And that would be a criminal investigation for child abuse, for sexually abusing children, yeah, from preventing parents or mother and father from getting information, for teaching the teaching staff to lie and cover for the operations of the heads and the governors. So that would go right back to 1997, that, and it would be a criminal investigation. So you're looking at prison for these people, without a shadow of a doubt, because this is what they've done. And I'd launch an immediate investigation into the council tax accounting from the day it began. We want a full audit on every bit of paperwork that's existed in relation to council tax. I'd suspend the contracts to the housing associations with immediate effect to fully investigate the initial contracts or the deeds that were set up when they took our properties in trust. Because I know that far from benefiting the realm and its people, they're being used in order to furnish the refugees and immigrants, as so named, against the actual population of these isles. So all the board members, from the moment they gained the trust status, past and present, will be immediately investigated. All assets will be frozen. Again, put into a trust, ultimately, for these trusts to come back into the domestic system. So these are the kind of points that if I were putting myself up as a politico, that I would be offering to the people as a promise that that is exactly what I'd do, and I'd use the English realm and law to authorise that, meaning all bets are off. No contracts are valid, they're all void that they have currently with all these central banking creditor systems. You know? So that's the kind of stuff so if somebody wanted me to join a political party, that's the kind of stuff you'd have to be talking. Because otherwise, you're just pissing in the same pot as the rest of them and swimming around like goggly-eyed goldfish, going to get nowhere, basically. Now, you put that into the mix as a real political mandate, and I think it'll start to wake people up to that kind of data, because they're not getting it from anywhere else. So that's just an insight into the kind of stuff I'd be doing. You know what I mean? What else are you saying? Brendan O'Connell, that's the guy. That's the guy. Yeah. Now, I've been aware of him for a long time, because he has been on the scene. But I never really, or if I did pay attention to his stuff, I can't remember it, you know. But I've been looking at him like, this guy is right on the ball. This is exactly what we knew were going on in the last 10 years. And now it's happening. You know what I mean? It's like, I'll say to people, you know, they're shocked, and I'll say, well, I said, obviously I'm shocked when they kicked this off 2 years ago. I said, but you've got to understand that I've had my face in this picture for a very long time. A long, long time. Now, the difficulty in doing this kind of stuff is you've then got two opposing realities, history's outcomes for future going on in your little being. And the difficulty with that is not going to either extreme. Because if you do, you can't function in a as balanced way as you can in this sort of labyrinth. You can't. Otherwise you come off as, oh, he's left, oh, he's right. No. I've explained my position as far as how I see left and right many times. So you've got to keep looking outside of that. You've got to be aware of both things that are going on, but you're looking ultimately at the top, the puppet masters. And it is difficult to master that ability to keep those two completely opposing ideas and outcomes, potentials in there, well, keep moving forward. And it's an exceptionally difficult trip, but I do seem to be able to master it okay. So that's good. What else are we saying? Good evening to Aman Duff. Hello there. Guys, how are you doing, Gary Garcia? You must be talking to Brendan. That's it. Exactly right, mate. You're right. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Old tech is dual use. Well, it is now, especially since the all the Intel stuff that has a processor in it, accessible only by Schofield Bible note believing networks, intelligence networks. You know, they basically got full control of that now, and they can blackmail everybody. And how are they doing? You got the no-hide. But first, obviously, the left are not the no-hides. Well, they are, but not overtly. Well, maybe they are, actually. But definitely the right is definitely overt, and that's exactly where it's going to start to go now. So, I mean, you know, we got all this with Middle East. It's like when it starts to go right, what's going to happen now that they've mixed up all these Muslims slap bang in the middle of Zionist nations? You know, it's exactly what were written. Albert Pike, protocols. They've moved their war in our backyard, everywhere. That's what they've done. So they're going to activate that, and it's going to activate. Make no mistake about it, unless people switch on and wake up. You know, statutory declaration is still on. Oh, we haven't done that, have we yet? I've missed that one out, because what I want to go through in a bit is trusts. Because it's hard for people when we talk trust this, trust that, bloody this, beneficiary that. So I thought, go back to the beginning and just try and get it in your mind so you do understand the format of what it is you're in, and get to a point where you can see it in your mind, and so you can start to so when people say trustee or beneficiary, it's not just gone over your head and through. You're going, now I get it, yeah? So we're going to just have a little shindig on that, because I think that we will get back to stat debt, I promise you. I'm sorry about that, but we will do, I promise you. So it's a guy in Canada, YouTube channel, it's called Eternally Aware. Who's that? I don't know, there's a video called Revelations of an Elite Insider. It has an anonymous source do a Q&A from 2004 after contemplating the beneath face value. Did the veracity of it become clear? So who's that question to, El? Right, so yeah, you're going back to the Insider. I mean, if you're new to this channel, I would seriously advise you to look through the channel videos, and there's two there that have got power written on them. Watch them. Just watch them and then see what you think yourself. But yeah, could have been a woman, exactly. That could have been a female. Yeah, because let's face it, guys. The reason why scripture says come out of her is because it doesn't matter how fucking mental males become. There's always a mad bitch at the back of it. Always. It's always a female. Well, they're not females, they're the bitches running the dark shit. It's their game. It's their arena. You know, this is why patriarchs took it off them back in the day, because it got to the point where they were shagging that many people, everybody were bringing up everybody else's kids. That's why they took it off the matriarchy. Which is why it's important, you know, if you're going to create these systems, that family is solid. Because if it isn't, it isn't. And it's going to undo. And this is where we're at in the West from the 60s. Well, you could say 20s. That's when they debauched the aristocracy. And then 50s, 60s, they spread it out into society. So, I have odd naked dreams often. Deborah, are you being... Ray, are you here? Don't forget, Ray, she wants a sex... What did you want? A sex toy? Imagine all you'd be thinking about naked Deborah. That I've got to school and have forgotten to put knickers on. Then spend dodging between buildings hiding. Well, that's odd, isn't it? I don't know. See, I don't know what to make of my one, neither. There will be a symbolism in it. Without a doubt. Deb Betty, the headmistress, says, Holy Spokes. Hello, Holy Spokes. June Gower, take them individually. Following orders is very dangerous. Ignorance is no excuse. Well, exactly, it isn't. It really isn't. Public notice says 100% correct. The man acting as minister is accountable. Yeah, not fanning around with DVLA or fanning around with DWP. They're corporate and charitable in some cases, so you can't get to see anything. Go right back into the state, into Whitehall, because some of them guys have been in there a long time. So as Debbie says, Mew accused me of being posh recently, so I could possibly be admitted. I went straight for chief executives and worked straight. Like always, yeah, CEOs. If you want something to do, don't protest outside. Send a letter to the CEO, because everybody beneath that guy is going to have to dance. You know, you start picketing outside, making a load of racket. It's a shock for a bit, but then people get used to it. It's part of class. It's part of conversation when they're having the brews. It doesn't function and serve anything. Send a letter to the CEO that has some clout about it. Everybody will dance. Farage is another Benedict Arnold. Do not trust Nigel Farage as far as you can throw him. Believe me. Ernie Beckoff. That's all I need to say. So he's a billionaire guy, Ernie Beckoff, and he pulled they managed to corral the European skeptics back in Thatcher's day, turned it into UKIP to people all get them all along there. This is James Goldsmith started it, remember? And then Ernie Beckoff took it over, basically, completely. And as Cameron made clear, there would be no Conservative Party, and it's back in 2010, if it hadn't been for Eri Beckhoff. And it's important that we grasp these this kind of data, you know. An English Constitution Party. Yeah, I think. Okay, yeah. But then, you know, to word it like that would also, it could work against you. I mean, you know, you'd have to take some jolly good thinking about working out a term if you were to set up a political party. And now that we're so multicultural, it would be in our interests. Yes, it's England that we're going to push back, because England's existed for a long time, and she's a good one. She could be my bird if she weren't just a load of paper. Honestly, she's that beautiful. So I would marry her, to be quite honest. But if we were to use that term right now with all the shit that's going on, it'd probably work against it. So, yeah, I know what you say. I know the sentiment, and I take that on board, absolutely. I worked for the West Mercia Police for 10 years. See you next Tuesday, both of them. What? What do you mean, Debs? The world is like a dead fish, rotting from the head down. Yeah, the world's not really a good... It's going exactly where it has to go, isn't it, the world? Because the world is not the earth. The earth's still in good condition. Birds are singing. Dogs are shitting everywhere. There's no difference. But the world, however, is a completely different animal. Oswald Twistle, Debbie says. What the fuck? Have you never heard of Oswald Twistle? King Oswald. So King Oswald were coming down from Northumbria to kick shit out of Pender, there in North Wales, who were a pagan, a naughty boy, apparently. But Oswald was a Celtic king. He wasn't a Roman Christian king. He took on the old Celtic, because he ended up having to run off up into Scotland. So Oswald, you could say, was our last Celtic king of North England, and he was the king of Northumbria. So he were off there to kick shit out of Pender. So he parked on moors just about 4 mile away from here. And there used to be an ancient, massive stone circle, but they've killed that. This was Waterboard did all this knocking down shit. So his army camped on the moor, and he had his personal camp at what became Church Kirk Church, which is the oldest church. I'm not sure whether it's oldest in country or just the north. I'm not sure. So Oswald Twistle, I think the Twistle stood for where three rivers came together. And so it's Oswald's Twistle. Yeah, they call them gobbiners. That's what they call them around here. But so that's where Oswald Twistle come from. Just thought I'd give you a bit of history there. Where are we? So, yeah, Farage is a Benedict. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Debbie. Guitar Girl says, thank you, Debbie. You two are fine. You have no problem with you. They were definitely my pronouns now. Yeah, it's so if you're looking to learn, you'll learn. Seek and you shall find. You've just got to be careful you're not listening to numpties, because they're giving you fun, or they're giving you something, you know, all the truth. Everything that they're hiding by giving you everything you think you want. If you get knocked off with them all there, you can end up wasting a lot of time. I stand, but too many skeletons in my cupboard. You need to bury them in bloody garden, love. Never mind having them in cupboard. You know what we it's like a serial killer, like. Yeah. Have you got a gang? Had news from Hauser. He's still studying, but it titles. News from Hauser. He's still studying, but it titles. But if titles affected. Okay, got you. Obligation to pay, nobody should be paying. No. But, I mean, let's just say you want to take your country back. It's a system that exists right now that's pulling in money. In fact, it's not really, is it? It's costing us, because the state's paying for all these or those on Social Security. So it's a... But you've got to be careful when you go to stuff like that. You don't want to just start killing everything, collapsing everything. Your state won't function. But there's enough money going on in this country, more than enough. I mean, last time I calculated this, 91 billion gets collected here, and that would just... With that just council tax alone in the country, it's 91 billion a year. I may be slightly off because it's a while since I did this, but I did actually write a report about it. Just absolutely shitloads of wealth in this nation. And it's ours. We generate it, you know. So if whatever the government get, you could times that by 10 that's actually in the nation. So it's just a case of removing our systems off this shit system. So I know what you mean about council tax, but as a get-go, if we were to kick off, it's probably worth keeping in... But all straight away, all you'd have to do, in immediate, is give each area back its tax collecting ability, and then it gets spent in there. And then we can reform. Nationalise your water, your gas, your electric, your airlines. Because the ports, you know what I'm saying? Get everything that's part of the domestic system, the infrastructure needs to be national. So, you know, like I said, there's two, left and right, let's say 22 rules to run the nation. Crowns give 11 to Labour and 11 to Conservative. Neither on their own are ever going to create a functioning nation, because they're constantly beating and battering each other with both sets of rules that we need to actually function. So, as far as Labour Massive goes, the nationalisation of the infrastructure, it's not just a Labour, it's an essential part of having a nation running. Having freedom to capital, again, what you'd afford to the right. It's essential. But then you can move a bit back to the Labour. It is important that you look after your workers, otherwise you go back to slavery. So a little bit of that. But it doesn't have to be hands of unions. It can just be statutes that all enterprise at a certain point has to follow. It's just a case of re-merging them 11 parts of the game, off left and right, into the one mould, and away you go. But again, you have to be careful you don't become a one-party state as well. But of course, if you're going to put the Constitution on the throne, that is what from that, everything else. But the Constitution here is all about giving you the freedom, isn't it? Freedom to trade, exchange, and barter. Freedom to live. It says I've lost some frames here. I don't know what that means. So too many skeletons, says Debbie. Obligation to pay no, yeah. Posh house, Deb. Ooh. Yeah, I've done that. I wait for the West Mercia, we've done that one. Who voted for multicultural? None of us did, kid. None of us did at all. And in truth, it would have been better for us, but it would also have been better for those that have come here. Because them that have come here are not happy here. They want to revert back to their own Sharia law, but they want to do it here. Because they don't realise that the Quran says they can't do that. And if they'd have sought knowledge where the Quran says as well, they'd know that difference between law and corporate legislation that's allowing them and encouraging them to defraud it. So it's not done them any good neither, because it's took them off their actual book, the Quran. They're no longer Muslims, they're kafir. So they'd have been better staying in their country. Like, for instance, if I decided I was going to go and live in another country, before I made that decision, I'd have to look at how that country operates and say, can I change my ways to the way that country works? If the answer was yeah, away I go. And I would change my ways to live exactly as that country has it down. Because that's sanity, you know what I'm saying? You can't start, if you start running off to other countries and start changing things, you become a coloniser. You know, and if you're saying I'm doing this because you colonised mine, well, what the fuck's that? You've become exactly what it is you think you're fighting. Because ultimately, it's not that, is it? It's some major problem you've got going on inside of yourself. And then you're projecting it out in all these little schisms and blah-de-blah-de-blah. For your political mandate, Sean, what about putting the whole of the financial system through bankruptcy, reorganisation, separating the legitimate and the illegitimate debt? Absolutely. But I'd start more than anything. So I've said there that I'd suspend all the contracts with the Bank of England and create our own mint. Now, Gordon Brown made a mess of that when he sold all our gold. I don't know how much they've recouped. I don't follow that kind of figures. What country has what amount of gold? But Gordon Brown did that deliberately just before it went sky high through the roof. Because Gordon Brown is a uber dark communist. Him and Jack Straw could probably be twins. You know what I'm saying? They're the power players in this game. You know, not Jeremy Corbyn's in this. Jack Straw is big Labour here. And I knew when I were battling some of the MPs that were Labour, I were actually fighting and battling with Jack Straw. From his little dark office in back room, underground, hiding in his bunker. Yeah, that's what they're doing, them kind of people. Because they know they're subverting. They know they're doing wrong. We need to hear the word deportation. Well, like I said, there we go. All paperwork issued to all immigrants that have come in illegal or it's suspect is revoked forthwith. So in order to do that, you're going to have to look at the prisons, because that's another set of systems that need pulling back into national infrastructure. And all people in them prisons that are in there for debt, that are in there for non-violent crimes, would have to be released immediately. Immediately. Because what's going on in them prisons isn't good. If you don't go in there on smack, you're coming out on smack. And that's under G4S. That's under corporate. If that were under state, it wouldn't happen. It wouldn't be allowed to happen, would it? Which is why they were very strict back in the day. Which, you know, if you go into prison, you've lost your liberties. And as long as you're guilty, who has a problem with that? You've got an opportunity to see the error of your ways in there. But putting people in for nothing is just not on. So you empty that side of prisons immediately, without a doubt. And then, of course, you can start dealing with these immigrants that have had the paperwork revoked. So you just revoke the paperwork, then the process has to start, doesn't it? And you'd have to employ people to administer that. So again, you're paying your own to pay tax back into the state. That's how it works. That's just how nations operate. At the moment, we're paying everything and it's going out. It's gone. And they say it's going to pay debt. Well, that debt doesn't exist. We didn't bail out banks in 2008. We didn't sign into Europe. We didn't sign into NATO. We didn't sign into United Nations. We don't agree to foreign aid going all over countries, into countries that are using space programs, when we can't even feed our own. It just wouldn't happen. So it's a slow process, but I thought the ones that I hit on are poignant enough to get the ball rolling. Do you know what I'm saying? And of course, there's going to be a lot of criminal investigations into the people. From set back to these changes, and let's look at what have they done in the time in there, and we take it from there. And there'd be a lot of people put in jail, because that's exactly what you'd have to do to them, put them in jail for what they've done. Yeah, we don't do capital punishment here anymore, and we'd be foolish to go back to it, because you know it only takes one incident to be done, and it makes it. You can't in any way sort of build it up as a moral idea, would be my opinion. So we don't want to go back to capital, but we would make sure that these people did lose all their assets for a start. You know what I mean? And they'd be put in prison. That would be how I would be looking at moving forward, with a system that would bring us back to some kind of nation standard, you know? Wasn't it Liverpool? Council has lost in court last week, so the first domino has been removed. Yeah, I know what you're saying about O'Connell, Gary. The problem is, it's like I don't go, oh, I'm not watching them, I'm not watching these. I'll watch anybody, because I can discern what needs to be discerned when I'm looking. So I'm not afraid. I don't think, oh, I'm not watching Alex Jones. Alex Jones wouldn't be able to fool me if he tried hard. But Alex Jones puts out information that I wouldn't necessarily get if I didn't watch. And I don't watch Alex Jones, don't get me wrong, I'm not watching. But what I'm saying is, if it comes up, I'll watch it. I'll watch Barangaris sometimes, because I know that they're going to be pulling up information that's relevant and in their field. But I wouldn't trust him as far as I could throw him, because they're connected up with what was the LaRouche movement, which were tied into German ultra right-wing Nazi groups. Northern Ireland intelligence. Yeah, there's a lot more goes on in intelligence in Northern Ireland than you'd know, and then they throw it back here. It's offshore, isn't it? Rome wasn't subverted in a day. Yeah, you're very true. It weren't. So let me have a little look on here now, because I just want to, while we're on with politics, because it is important, this politics, I want to, why has it done that again? It's such a pain in the arse, this. I just don't know why it does it. Here we go. So let's have a look. So we've said Privy Council. Right? What's being said now is basically the Privy Council is the cabinet, so it's running it. So that means that the billionaires are running our system through this Privy Council. So let's just have a little look here. So this has been put together by, what's he called? Richie Allen, okay? And he says Privy Council, Rothschild, Maxwell, Dolphin Square, Pedo, Cabal. So let's have a look at some of our Privy Councillors here, shall we? And this was put up in 2020. Privy Councillors include the following individuals linked to Britain's VIP paedophile operation. So John Bercow, Privy Councillor, the MP for Robert Maxwell's former constituency, and I think that is the Robert Maxwell of Gillane fame, before becoming the Speaker of the House of Commons. For years, John Bercow protected his very close friend Keith Vaz MP from facing allegations of paedophile abuse. Bercow's wife Sally, an apparent beard, well, a beard is, a fake wife, or a fake husband for the rich and wealthy. So that's where the term beard comes from. So if your last name's Beard, somewhere down the line in your family, they were operating as beards for the wealthy. And so his wife Sally, an apparent beard, implemented a clever ruse on Twitter to allow Lord Alistair McAlpine to evade justice for his alleged personal involvement in the North Wales paedophile and trafficking ring, which sent young boys to Dolphin Square in London. Lord Paul Boating, I never liked him. Ever. Privy Councillor, and there's been allegations of child abuse. Lady Virginia Bottomley. Privy Councillor. Lady Bottomley has personal and professional relationships with Lord Mandelson and de Rothschild, Sir Evelyn and Lady Lynn Forrester. Remember, it's Evelyn giving Charles the finger on that image that I've appraised you with. Lord Mandelson and the de Rothschilds allegedly provide substantial financial and practical assistance to Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein, while at the same time helping to groom Prince Andrew and the Duchess of York to become two of the operation's blackmail targets. So you can say you want to bet Andy. Everything that went on recently, she was 17 and she was paid $5,000 a shot. So that doesn't interest me in the slightest. As far as I'm concerned, Andrew did nothing wrong in this nonsense. What he's done in the past, I don't know. But there you can see clearly that these two were specifically picked out to become blackmail targets. Lady Elizabeth Butler-Sloss. Now she's got admits in a lot of things, this one. So this one is a bad one. Privy Councillor, the early choice to lead the UK child abuse inquiry. Well, surprise, surprise. Apparently because of her manifold personal relationships with many VIPs implicated in serious wrongdoing. Lord Justice Adrian Fulford, Privy Councillor, paedophile information exchange. Sir Edward Garnier, QC, Privy Councillor, alleged cover-up merchant. Garnier allegedly threatened the then MP Simon Danzuk not to publicly link Leon Britton to claims of child sexual abuse. Zach Goldsmith, Privy Councillor, alleged cover-up merchant. Lloyd William Haig, the master of the DWP when it was changing over. A Privy Councillor, Haig was very close friend and disciple of the late career paedophile Leon Britton, whom Haig regarded as his mentor. Hey. The pair reportedly enjoyed ill walking together in the free time, and Haig is known to have stayed at Britton's house. Lord Haig is an alleged cover-up merchant with respect to the North Wales child abuse scandal. His wife, Lady Fionn, is his apparent beard, so another pretend wife, because if you go with that, then Mr. DWP was a bit of a woofter. Dame Margaret Hodge, Privy Councillor, cover-up merchant with respect to the Islington Borough Council child abuse scandal, for which she is indisputably culpable. Sir Edward Lee, MP, Privy Councillor, allegations of child sexual abuse. Dr. Julian Lewis, MP, Privy Councillor, alleged cover-up merchant with respect to Dolphin Square and the investigatory work of reporters employed by Scallywag magazine. Now, they were great in the time. Lord Peter Lilly. So if you ever want to have a good look and a take on British politics, hunt down copies of the old Scallywag magazine online or whatever. Lord Peter Lilly, Privy Councillor, alleged cover-up merchant who was frequently seen at Dolphin Square during the period of VIP paedophile gatherings on site. Dame Julia McClure, Privy Councillor, alleged cover-up merchant with respect to the North Wales child abuse scandal. David Oglivie, Privy Councillor. David is the brother of the late Sir Angus Oglivie, Sir Angus having been an apparent close friend of career paedophile Jimmy Savile. Savile reportedly visited institutions such as the Duncroft School with Sir Angus' wife, Princess Alexandra, in tow. Now that's interesting, that Duncroft School, because that's where they kicked off the Savile stuff. Now, I was talking to a lass that had been at that school at the time. It was an approved school for girls. She called herself Anna Raccoon. She was very well connected with Whitehall and a lot of celebrities. And we had some good chinwags. And I learnt a lot from her. And basically, what they were saying about this particular school was false. And she was trying to get that across. So, Lord Thomas Pendray, a Privy Councillor, Michael Portillo, Privy Councillor, and allegations of child abuse. Sir Malcolm Rifkind, QC, Privy Councillor. Rifkind is a cousin of the late Lord Leon Britton, an alleged cover-up merchant with impeccable connections to the intelligence community. Sir Malcolm would have enjoyed unique access to restricted files on the case against his cousin, as well as restricted access files on other parliamentarians and VIPs who patronised the Elm Guesthouse de facto child brothel. Sir Simon Peregrine, Privy Councillor. Simon Peregrine is the judge who defrauded whistleblower Andrea Davidson of her property to keep VIP paedophile evidence from surfacing. Andrea Davidson was a researcher for Scallywag magazine responsible for gathering victim testimonies bearing on the Westminster VIP paedophile cabal then in operation. Lord David Steele, Privy Councillor, allegations of child abuse. Lord Steele reportedly used his own weekday Dolphin Square flat to host meetings with Dolphin Square paedophile and trafficker Derek Lord. Steele protected career paedophile Cecil Smith for many years. Moreover, an anonymous accuser alleged on a blog that during the 10 years of Steele residence with his adopted son in Dolphin Square, William Steele, or Billy, admitted that his adoptive father was sexually abusing him. Keith Vaz, Privy Councillor, allegations of child abuse. Valerie Vaz, MP, Privy Councillor, the sister of Keith Vaz. I think, so, I mean, she's not necessarily been tied in, but I think what he's trying to get across is they're all Privy Councillors, they're privy to this information. So they couldn't turn around and say they didn't know. And if you knew and didn't say anything, that's cover-up. John Whittingdale, MP, Privy Councillor, allegations of child abuse. Moreover, it is alleged that Whittingdale, whose half-brother is Charles Napier, former treasurer of the Paedophile Information Exchange, was himself at one time a member of that notorious club for serial child abusers. Sir Robert Atkins, Privy Councillor, had a home at Dolphin Square, forward Collingwood House, while the paedophile ring operated there. Intriguingly, Giz's daughter Victoria, or is that his? Might be. Victoria Atkins MP now serves as Parliamentary Under Secretary of State for Safeguarding. The Duchess of Cornwall, Camilla Parker Bowles, and Prince Charles. Yeah? So you're King and Queen in waiting. Privy Councillors. Prince Charles was very close friends with Jimmy Savile, who acted as the Prince's marriage counsellor, while the Prince was still married to his former wife. Charles' current wife, Camilla Parker Bowles, is a long-time very close friend of the Dolphin Square paedophile and child trafficker, Derek Lord. They have holidayed abroad together, and there's a report to be seen in The Sun of 30th of May 2005. And of course, he's talking about Diana. Did Charles actually got Jimmy Savile to act as the marriage counsellor for him and Diana? What an insult, because of course Diana knew what he were. Lord Kenneth Clarke, Privy Councillor. The former child actor Ben Fellows has alleged that Kenneth Clarke sexually assaulted him as a 19-year-old youth in the office of the late paedophile lobbyist Ian Greer. Now, we had a look at Ben Fellows when he just burst onto the stage, and we didn't like him. We didn't like him at all. Nigel Evans, so he's a local boy. Privy Councillor Evans is a former parliamentary private secretary to William Hague, 96 to 97. A total of 7 young men alleged that Mr Evans had either sexually assaulted, indecently assaulted, or, in one case, raped them. William Hague and John Burkle leapt to Evans' defence. Evans subsequently joined forces with alleged paedophiles Sir Cliff Richard, Elm Guesthouse, and Paul Gambaccini to try and change the law to protect the anonymity of those accused of rape and sexual assault. Now, this Evans clip that were around here, I know all about it. There was another guy involved in there called, he wasn't an MP at all, but he was a 33rd degree, and he was called, I forgot his name. He's dead anyway. But the current network we have here is still connected to that network, so it's still ongoing. It looks like so many of these touring massive, especially the older ones, are the ones that they've got held in this blackmail. Harriet Harman, Privy Councillor, as the NCCL's legal officer, Harriet Harman sought to water down child pornography laws. In 1978, Harman wrote a briefing paper on the Protection of Children Bill, which sought to ban child pornography. She claimed such a law would increase censorship and argued that the pornographic picture of a naked child should not be considered indecent unless it could be proven that the subject had suffered. Well, yeah, because everybody used to take pictures of their kids, didn't they? Because your kids never wanted their clothes on. And I remember when that started to be affected, people weren't very happy about it. But I suppose now that we are a bit more aware, now people only allow it to happen in schools, and teachers do it, In 1976, the NCCL filed a submission to a parliamentary commission claiming a proposed bill to protect children from sex abusers would lead to damaging and absurd prosecutions. Childhood sexual experiences willingly engaged in with an adult result in no identifiable damage, it read. Oh my God. Yeah, well, I know a lot of people that suffered that as children, and believe you me, damage isn't the word. The real need is a change in the attitude which assumes that all cases of paedophilia result in lasting damage. You're damn right it does. Privy Councillor Hewitt was General Secretary of the NCCL before becoming an MP. No, we've done that. Oh, no, we haven't. Was General Secretary of the NCCL before becoming an MP, while at NCCL Hewitt described the paedophile information exchange in glowing terms as a campaigning counselling group for adults attracted to children. Adults attracted to children. Yeah, it's called paedophilia. We don't need to give it another name. In 1982, Ms Hewitt published The Police and Civil Liberties, in which she discussed the jailing of PI Secretary Tom O'Carroll for conspiracy to corrupt public morals. She wrote, "Conspiring to corrupt public morals is an offence incapable of definition or precise proof." Lord Norman Lamont, Privy Councillor, a former Rothschild employee and director. Yeah, he was the man at the time, weren't he, in the 80s, when it went tits up. In his eulogy, The Paedophile Leon Britton, Lord Lamont disclosed that he had holidayed with the notorious serial paedophile on Mykonos. Britton used the same Elm Guesthouse as Jocelyn Cadbury, Lamont's parliamentary private secretary. Jocelyn Cadbury subsequently took his own life after being interviewed by police following an Elm guest house raid. Lamont's other PPS have included Leon Britton's very close friend and acolyte William Hague, and Esther Hanson's child protection colleague Peter Wanless. Alumni of the Bow Group, of which Lord Lamont was chairman, include Lord Leon Britton, Jocelyn Cadbury, Kenneth Clark, Peter Lilly, Peter and Virginia Bottomley, Michael Colvin, Michael Patillo, Lord Cormac and Tim Sainsbury. Lamont was in a relationship with Rebecca Wellersteiner, daughter of the late Robert Maxwell's primary business partner, Kurt Wellersteiner. Rebecca's brother, Dr. Anthony Wellersteiner, presides over Stowe School, at the centre of an alleged VIP paedophile network linked to the Maxwells and intelligence services. Lord Nigel Lawson, Privy Councillor, Lord Lawson's son, Dominic, has confirmed he has stayed at Jeffrey Epstein's house. Further, Dominic's wife Rosa is listed as Ghislaine Maxwell's Black Book. Companies in which Rosa Lawson and Edgar Bronfen Jr. have both served as directors include Gerard & Co Limited, Asprey London Limited, Asprey Holdings Limited. Nigel Lawson has asserted that police should stop funding investigations into historical child sexual abuse. Lord Lawson's son Tom Lawson was deputy head teacher at Christ Hospital School in Horsham, West Sussex from July 2013 to 16. Reportedly, no fewer than 5 teachers at Christ Hospital School being convicted for offences related to child sexual abuse. One of the school's common punishments was reportedly to send students to spend a few nights at the house of Prince Charles' paedophile friend, Bishop Peter Ball. So, hey up, Peter Ball, the Bishop, Church of England. Oh! I mean, the Church of England it is, not how it should be, of course. Lord Peter Mandelson, Privy Councillor, then following allegation, was posted on commenter on craigmurray.org.uk, as well as on the boat itself. Children from Isle of Wight Colonels were abused by both Edward Heath and Peter Mandelson at the Priory Bay Hotel near St Helens on the eastern side of the island. The estate extends to some 60 acres and provides a lot of privacy. Once owned by Eton College, it was MI5's HQ on the island during World War II. Separately, in 2003, it was reported that Mantle had been the person of interest for detectives assigned to Operation Oi, a nationwide police operation to identify and prosecute users of a website peddling child pornography. Mandelson was not arrested or charged because detectives insisted, bizarrely, they had somehow confused a parliamentarian with a Welsh student of the same name. Oh, yeah. Well, they were too important, weren't they? He was Blur's handler as well. The explanation was unconvincing when Mandelson, of course, operates directly for Jacob Rothschild. Mandelson has been a very close friend and business associate of child traffickers Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, in whose Black Book his name is listed. Mandelson lent public school support to Maxwell's fake charity Terra Mar, reportedly a slush fund for child victims of trafficking operations, and even holidayed with Epstein in the US Virgin Islands. Moreover, Mandelson is very close to Ghislaine Maxwell benefactors Lady Lynn and Evelyn de Rothschild, using the NSPCC freebies and Prince Andrew, so it might be Evelyn that he's close to, not Jacob. My apologies. In tandem with Anshu Jain appear to have worked their influence at Deutsche Bank to get Epstein financially enabled. Mandelson served with de Rothschild and Jain on the board of trustees of Deutsche Bank's Alfred Herrhausen Society. Subsequently, Jain was hired by Epstein's next-door neighbour Howard Lutnick of Cantor Fitzgerald. Mandelson rents a home from his close friend Nat Rothschild, who lives in the Stone Point estate adjoining Ches Mandelson. Another close friend is James Purnell, on whose computer child abuse photographs were found. Mandelson is closely associated with Virginia and Peter Bottomley, whose name appears on the Elm Guest House visitor list. Alan Milburn, Privy Councillor, citing the need to spend more time with his family. Alan Milburn suddenly resigned as government minister in June 2003, a mere few months after a list of suspected paedophiles assembled by Operation Oi had been leaked to the press. Operation Oi was a nationwide police operation that sought to identify the users of a website peddling child pornography. It has been alleged that Milburn was among the politicians flagged by detectives as a person of interest, although published evidence for this appears to be lacking. Progress is a political organisation founded in 1996 to 2008. Moreover, Policy Network and Communications in an earlier period, counting among its directors Lord Mandelson from November 2001 to October 2004, and Lady Lynn Forrester de Rothschild from 2001 to 2002. Lord David Neuberger, who we explored last week, Privy Councillor. Lord Neuberger, former employee of N.M. Rothschild, previously advocated censorship of social media to suppress references to VIP paedophiles. Neuberger's wife Angela Halls was a BBC executive for many years and must have known about Jimmy Savile's activities. She also worked with Nick Ross and Esther Ranson on Man Alive before becoming the editor of Crime Watch. Now, Esther Ranson set up Childline specifically to filter out accusations against VIP paedophiles. Neuberger's sister, Lady Julia Neuberger, was previously senior rabbi at a West London synagogue. Its members have included Esther Ranson and deceased alleged paedophiles Alan Bradley and Sir Simon Milton. So that first female rabbi synagogue was something else, and it was moving to change Judaism. WLS Rabbi David Mitchell was suspended after joking and laughing about seeing kids' genitalia. Past directors of the Institute for Jewish Policy Research include Julia Neuberger, Greville Janet, Edgar Bronfen Sr., whose son is listed in Ghislaine Maxwell's Black Book, Jacob Rothschild and Daniel Finkelstein. If anybody has a link to the Black Book of Ghislaine Maxwell, can you send it me? Because I don't have one. I've got the unredacted and redacted Epstein's on site, but I don't have Ghislaine Maxwell. So if any of you have that who can get it, please send it. Lord George Robertson, now he was head of NATO, this fella. Privy Council, in 1996, Thomas Hamilton reportedly massacred 16 school children in Dunblane. Robertson and Hamilton were reported friends, and it has been alleged that George Robertson acted as the referee on Hamilton's shotgun licence. The unofficial story is that Hamilton was supplying pornography and possibly young boys to top people, including policemen and politicians, and Hamilton may have been murdered to shut him up. It has further been suggested that Hamilton was a brainwashed patsy and that the real shooters were working for the security services, as is the case with a lot of the shootings in America. It's people dressed up as police that are doing it. Reportedly, both Robertson and Hamilton were friends of Queen Victoria's School, where for many years a child abuse ring allegedly operated. Finally, members of the Army and Navy Club have included Lord Robertson, the late paedophile Peter Heyman, and the late alleged paedophile Lord Edwin Bramall. Sir Tim Sainsbury, Privy Councillor, former president of the Conservative Friends of Israel. Tim Sainsbury was the Tory MP for Hove in 1973 to 97. In 92, a rented house in Hove, namely 11 Palmyra Avenue, was targeted in a suspected arson attack. 5 died in the fire, and another 2 individuals subsequently took their lives. Friends and relatives of the 2 victims, Adrian Johns, who died in the arson attack in April 92, and Lee Homburg, who died of an apparent drugs overdose nearly 3 years later, are convinced that the 2 brothers were silenced because they knew too much about the drugs and porn trade to which they had been introduced while in Kerr. Both Adrian and Lee had been abused at Bryn Allen Community Children's Home in Wrexham. Later, Lee gave evidence against the head of Bryn Allen, John Allen. The week before the fire, John Allen met Adrian in a small flat he shared with his brother. Both brothers had been asking Allen for compensation for their ordeal while they were in Kerr. In January 95, Lee gave evidence at John Allen's trial. Shortly afterwards, and just days before, he was due to receive a very substantial payout from the Criminal Justice Injuries Compensation Board. He was killed by a suspected drug overdose. John Allen had been trafficking boys from the Bryn Allen Community Care Homes to VIPs in North Wales, as well as international paedophile network with tentacles extending to Dolphin Square and beyond. The victims having recently linked Derek Lord and Julian Lewis and Ian Greer to the circumstances of the abuse they said they had suffered in Kerr. Reportedly, an employee of Tory MP Robert Banks, named Anthony Lillis, was transferred to Tim Sainsbury's service after Lillis expressed disquiet at having witnessed Conservative MPs at Dolphin Square sexually abusing traffic use. On Palmyra Avenue, Tim Sainsbury was registered as director of NOS 4749 Palmyra Avenue Management Limited. This perhaps indicates that he owned one or more properties at that address. A mere few doors down from the murder house targeted for arson, Tim Sainsbury's daughter Camilla married Sean Woodward, the co-founder with Esther Ranson and Sarah Kaplan, who was Ranson's cousin, of Childline. Childline was decided as an early warning and containment system for child abuse complaints, identifying protected VIPs. Tim Sainsbury's brother Lord John Sainsbury is an alumnus at Store School. Alumni, is it? Or alumnus? Oh, yeah. Whose daughter Sarah is married to Dame Elizabeth Butler-Sloss's sons Robert. See, they don't have to keep it in the family. Dame Elizabeth Butler-Sloss was the original choice of the then Prime Minister Theresa May to chair the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse charge, with probing claims involving institutions such as Store School. So Theresa May, her mother was from the Middle East. Enough said. Lady Gillian Shepherd, Privy Councillor. Shepherd attracted headlines in 2014 following the revelation she mysteriously lost a file of evidence detailing the widespread paedophilic abuse of the late Sir Cyril Smith. Past directors of the social media include Gillian Shepherd and Gillian Shepherd's friend Julia Newberger and Dame Margaret Hodge. You've got John Sinclair, Privy Councillor, Thurso, former Executive Director of Champneys Fitness and Leisure, closely associated with the late Jimmy Savile and close friend of Dorothy Perdue. Viscount Thurdue's cousin, the first, William Sinclair, who was friends with Nat Rothschild and George Osborne, died in strange circumstances. I went to a conference, one at Sinclair's there, not really interesting. Viscount Thurso served as trustee of the Clan Sinclair Trust alongside fellow trustee Niven James Sinclair, a three-time convicted child abuser from the family of Freemasons. Thurso is the founder of and runs a hotel at Cliveden, while the lease is owned by brothers Ian and Richard Livingston, whose early developments were financed by Jacob Rothschild's merchant bank Downey Day. Or Donny Day. In 2011, Ian and Natalie bought a home previously owned by Matthew Freud and Elizabeth Murdoch. And Sean Woodward, Privy Councillor, is the co-founder with Etta Rancer and Sarah Kaplan, whose Rancer's good enough Charline. Charline was designed, we've said, blah, 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 blah. So that is the kind of games that are going on with our, not just Conservative massive, are they? I mean, there are all sorts in there. But this is how they've grabbed, through these Savile and Epstein networks, our political system. Oh, you couldn't see that at the bottom, could you? Sorry about that. So that's interesting. So now, let me see if I can get this to work, because it weren't bloody working before. So I need to go to image. Okay. I'll have a look at what you're doing, then we'll have a little look at this. Just have a look at trust. It's not massive, it's not a major thing, but you can just look back at this and it'll get you in your mind into what it is. We keep popping on a bit. So this comes from it's a newspaper or some kind of Main Republic email alert. Retired judge spills the beans by Judge Dale. He says stuff you're not supposed to know. I didn't plan on writing a part 5, but given the global movement in play to collapse the financial dominance historically created and controlled by the Vatican, European royal and elite, plus the retaliatory efforts by the United States corporation to recoup their control of America, I felt a need to point out the flaws in their corporate process. You probably identify with this corporate process as a legal process, but it really isn't about what is legal or lawful, because all process is about the enforcement of contracts or the imposition and enforcement of corporate regulations, called statutes. The best advice you will ever receive is to avoid their courts whenever possible. There is no justice to be found in these courts, unless you are a member of the Vatican, the royal or elite, or have purchased diplomatic immunity. The courts, the only constitutional court in America is the International Court of Trades, which was created because no foreign national government would trade with the corporate United States until they provided a way for those foreign nations to enforce their trade agreements with America. Corporate administrative offices designed to resemble courts, and all of their judges are simply executive administrators designed to resemble judges. So we call them store courts here. That's what they've been called for centuries here, and they're forbidden. So that's what all these magistrates, all this nonsense you're going through, they're store courts. They're not actually courts. They're not courts of record, remember that. The purpose of these pseudo courts is to settle contract disputes, and since George Washington's government was military in structure, if either party refused to participate, these courts can not become involved and the dispute is dead in the water. My use of the term dead in the water is not a canoid, because these pseudo courts are unconstitutional courts of admiralty, the international law of the sea. The Washington Monument was completed in 1884 as a tribute to George Washington and his military government, which is actually a sea level obelisk that infers that all of America is underwater and thus subject to the laws of admiralty, as opposed to, or contrary to, the intended constitutional civilian government. So these obelisks that they've got going on everywhere, yeah, this is what they're representing. So you've got one outside Chelmex and Adelphi on the embankment, that's Cleopatra's Needle. You have another one of Cleopatra's Needles gone into the US. I think there's 13 gone around all over the show in different parts of the world. And that's what they're symbolising. So the big one you've got in the United States again. No, all tradable securities must be assigned a custom number before they can be offered to investors. Birth certificates and social security applications are converted into government securities, assigned CUSIP numbers, grouped into lots, and then marketed as a mutual fund investment. Upon maturity, the profits are moved into government SESQ trusts, which is the entry of birth if you're applying it to yourself, as opposed to the SESQ trust, which is your given name attached to a surname, and then you're going in on the dead trust. You're dead no matter what you do. And if you are still alive, the certified documents are reinvested. It is the funds contained in the SESQ trust that the judge, clerk and county prosecutor are really after or interested in. So, yeah, the creditor title is the entry with just your Christian name, and the dead trust title is when it's attached to the surname. We've done all that. The trust actually pays all of your debts, but nobody tells you that because the elite consider those assets to be their property, and the Federal Reserve System is responsible for the management of those investments. Social Security, SSI, SSD, Medicare and Medicaid are all financed by the trust. The government makes you pay taxes and a portion of your wages supposedly to pay for these services, which they can borrow at any time for any reason, since they cannot access the SESQ trust to finance the wars or to bail out Wall Street and their patron corporations. Well, that's why it's a debt now, isn't it? Instead of it being just taken out of this fund that they've got, that's ours, our estates, they turned it into a debt and threw it onto us. Yeah? So, now then. So that's basically the backdrop. Right? Next one. Oh, they're not very big, are they? Is that a bit better? Or you? Just a minute. That's it. Now, so we're looking here at 50. It says your name, when spelled in all capital letters, is a corporation, a SESQ trust, yeah, and it has attached to it the surname, yeah. That, so there you can see that, and that comes from canon law, so Roman canon law. The people do not include you and me, since our names are all capital letters, fictional legal names. And these are court rulings. Oh, that's a court ruling, yeah, that we're producing a court. So I'll do it again. The people do not include you. So when it says we the people, it's not you when you're going in on this birth certificate. You're dead. You're neither citizen, public, subject, or any of that nonsense. You are dead, and they're going to have it. A 1040 form is for tribute paid to Great Britain and the Vatican. Remember, Great Britain is this fancy title that's enabled the Vatican to scoop up our shit in the shit that we were talking about last week, yeah? So the 1040 form is for tribute paid to Great Britain and then to the Vatican. IRS publication 6209 IMF decoding manual, so that's where that comes from. So maybe the IRS, the IMF decoding manual is the one to have. he says everything in the United States is for sale: roads, bridges, schools, hospitals, water plants, prisons, airports, etc. We bought Clammer Lake in California, and that was some executive order 12803. And 19, it is not the duty of the police to protect you. Right? No, here in England, or on England, the duty of the constable was to service the law. But here, this is coming from America, it says it is not the duty of the police to protect you. Their job is to protect the corporation and arrest code breakers, okay? And that again came through a court ruling. So that's case law. So look at this. Now, trusts generally considered. Now, I can't remember what I've got this from. A trust in the most enlarged sense in which the term is used in our jurisprudence is a beneficial interest in property, real or personal, distinct from the legal possession and ownership thereof. Alright? So it's an interest and it's distinct from having ownership of it. So like they said, own nothing but control everything. Right? So this is why these trusts are being used. In trust, the legal title and possession of the property are in one person. Right? So the title and possession are in one person, called a trustee. Which is why when you go to court, they have you as trustee, they're going to hit you because you're the one that's in possession of the property that they want to attack. Right? The equitable title and beneficial use of the property are in another person called assessed to Q trust. So that's the entry, the creditor title, or beneficiary. Right? The trustee holds the direct and absolute dominion over the trust property in the view of courts at law, while in the view of courts of equity, the trustee is a mere steward to hold, manage and account for the proceeds of trust property for the exclusive benefit of the beneficiary. So this is why when you're dealing with this stuff, you not want to be playing in the courts of law. You want courts at law. You want to always pull things through to equity, because the equity is actually it belongs to the beneficiary in a sense, but in the law, it's transferred, isn't it, possession to the trustee. Yeah. Right. In the sight of a court at law, the beneficiary has no interest in the trust property. While in sight of the court of equity, the beneficiary has all the enjoyable interests. All right. So when you get into trust law, you're into equity. And if I do remember, one guy I did communicate with for a bit, I can't remember his name, an old guy, he was going on and on and on about equity. The thing is, he put that much information in the mix, I couldn't understand it, I couldn't keep up with it. In short, the trustee holds the legal title and the possession of the trust property, but all the benefits arising from the property, its income or profits, belong wholly or in part to the beneficiary. As a general rule, property of every kind and form, real and personal, may be made the subject of a trust. Any person who has the capacity to hold and dispose of property can impress a trust upon it, and generally any person capable of holding property may be made a trustee or a beneficiary. Courts of Chancery have exclusive jurisdiction of all matters arising out of trusts of all kinds, express, resulting and constructive. Yeah? So this is why I used to bang on about Chancery. If you want to get proper, if equity is involved, you've lost, that's where you go. You don't want to go to law, really. Now this is an interesting one. I don't know whether you've ever come across this again, but this is exceptionally interesting. Because there's another way to deal with the positions between beneficiary and trustee. Let me have a look. Trusts generally considered. A trust in the most enlarged sense in which the term is used in our jurisprudence is a beneficial interest in property, real or personal. Hang on a minute. No. I've just done that one, haven't I? Sorry, Charles. Oh. Where am I? Image. This one, is it? This is an interesting one. I think it's it. So 1260. Where a trustee buys in his own name with the money of another, a declaration of trust is usually made by deed poll, in which the trustee declares the facts and that his whole name is only used as a trustee for the SQ trust. So that's your entry, your creditor account, right? Who is the real purchaser, right? The objection. So that's the normal format where the trustee basically has control of everything, so they could bugger off if they were naughty. The objection to this plan is that it leaves the legal estate in the trustee. It is better, therefore, in many cases, to make a regular conveyance of grant and release from the trustee to the purchaser. A very short form endorsed on the conveyance to the trustee will be sufficient. It should contain a recital of the facts and conclude with the declaration that the trustee, at the request of the SQ Trust, had agreed to convey the premises to his use, which are then conveyed for a nominal pecuniary consideration, and the premises will be sufficiently described by the words, the herediments and premises mentioned and comprised in the within indenture. The trustee simply covenants that he has done to act to encumber. If partitions, sales or exchanges under powers, it is necessary to revoke the use limited by the instrument containing the power so far as it relates to the property in question, and to declare new uses thereof, and the instrument by which this is done should recite the previous instrument showing the creation of the powers so far as relates to the said property and the power of revocation. So that's, I don't know whether people are aware of that or not, but when I saw it I thought, well, here we go. That's interesting data, and it'll probably mean more to some of you guys out there than it actually does to me. Now then, beneficiary. Again, just to help you get this in your minds. Have I not been transitioning this? I haven't, have I? Oh, bugger. What I'll do, I'll just read this and then I'll go through them again on a transition, because you might want to read them for yourself. Alright, sorry, I've done that. Sorry, guys. Now, oh, wait a minute. Can't see it all. As the grantor of this trust, the federal government made the state the beneficiary of the trust in your stead, and called it the John Doe Social Security Trust, as numbered in conjunction with your name, which holds and manages your property in trust, for the benefit of the state instead of for you. However, there is a way to separate from them and become free. Affirm the truth of your status and come out from among them and be separate. Right? And then the others come out of her, isn't it, as well? Rebut their presumptions and be free. And that's 2 Corinthians, that bit of the biblical law. You should be the one to execute your trust. You should be the executor, grantor, shareholder, administrator, beneficiary of your trust estate. Your government servants should be the trustees who have to take orders from you and be in obedience to you, the real executor of your trust. In other words, the role of the trustee in your trust was changed from your government servants to you, and the role of the beneficiary in your trust was changed from you to your government servants and the state for the benefit of the state without your knowledge or consent. The federal government usurped the role as the executor, administrator, director, shareholder, beneficiary of your trust estate and made you the trustee of the trust estate, who must make orders or take orders from the state instead of from God. Right? So that's man, person. Can you see the difference between man and person? The Bible constantly says God doesn't recognize person. It is really important to, I know it's an hard get, but once it does, you get it this, and it's really gone into you, then nothing that you're going to hear from these guys is gobbledygook. And when it is gobbledygook, you'll recognize it yourself, and you'll feel a lot more confident in this stuff, and that'll make a lot more sense to you. Do you know what I'm saying? What is the significance of this a bait and switch, you may ask? Well, it is simply this. Instead of you being the beneficiary of your trust estate, the state made your government servants and state the beneficiaries of your trust estate instead. That's what they're doing all the time. That's why they want ID. ID. So I'm just going to put these in for you, like I said. Send them over so you can have if you need to, you can actually have a look at them. So my apologies for not doing that in the first place. And that one. Next one is that one. Let's just make that a little bit bigger. And that's that. Then we have that, which is quite important, this one. That. Well, we've done that one. There is one more I'm going to do. This is 10 maxims of law. And it'll make sense to you. I need to work on how to get these images a little bit. Right. It says, a workman is worthy of his hire. All men are equal under the law. In commerce, truth is sovereign. Truth is expressed in the form of an affidavit. An unrebutted affidavit stands as truth in commerce, which also stands for a stat debt, remember. An unrebutted affidavit becomes judgment in commerce. So this is the idea of affidavits. If you don't rebut them, then that is the judgment, what you've said. A matter must be expressed to be resolved, right? So you can't just run around ignoring things, pretending it's not happening. You've got to get involved. He who leaves the field of battle first loses by default. Sacrifice is the measure of credibility. A lien or a claim can be satisfied only through rebuttal by counter-affidavit point by point, resolution by jury, or payment or performance of the claim. Did that make sense? So that is important. If you're struggling to understand all the blah that we put out on here and other good folks are putting out on those platforms, if you come to grips with that, so don't stop looking at it until you grasp it. So there's going to be words in there you're going to have to define, write it down so you know, so that you have a full picture of what that's saying. That's a game changer, okay? And it's the first point. And then if you, as a video, I've got that one where I show you the Sesquiu Trust without the surname. Again, your first base to touch with when you're trying to get to grips with this stuff. And you'll start to, you'll feel more confident, you won't be afraid, and you'll be able to listen to the banter out there for politicals, and you'll see it for what it is. You will see it for what it is, guys, you know? So I'll just have a look at what you guys are saying, and we'll call that a gig. Alright, you told yourself, what about putting you on the fight? Yep, done that. Stand for truth on no hide. Well, I'm going to pull it together in a manner that's obviously sensible. And I'm going to do it on this indie. That's the plan. But it's you have to be careful because, you know, there's a lot of it coming from fringe. You've got to pick what's real because it's the only game on the table really that we really need to start focusing to, because bringing law into these systems is the only way we can start to put it into the mix in Whitehall kind of places and stuff like that, and then get it moved on to law, because England forbids it. I'm sure Scotland forbids it also, but I can't say I know that for a fact. But England forbids it, everything, all this. But you have to put that on the bench for them to look at. English Constitution already exists. Okay, so that's what Graham's on, is it? Yeah, you can't. You can't go to another country and start telling Port what crack is, because then you're off the game completely. Richie Allen, I have to say, yeah, he comes out. He puts some good stuff up, does Richie, and he don't muck about. Yeah, a beard does provide the illusion of masculinity to homosexual women, yeah, and women. Works both ways as well. Well, it just shows you just to what degree they've got them captured, all our people, through these blackmail networks, whether that be Savile, whether it be Epstein. It's massive, it's huge, and that's what's controlling all these shenanigans that we're witnessing right now. Mark Fox says, hey, hi Sean, hello there matey, how you doing? Holy spokes, need an early life check on these characters. Yeah, well, they groom now, aren't they? It's a different game from NLP times. What they've done to all these children, these young generations, is horrific. Yeah, Jill Daniel knew, Cilla Black knew. They all knew back in the day about. Yeah, the only one that talked about it was Johnny Rotten. Treen's late. Hiya, Treen. Well, that's normal for you, darling. So, yeah, make reference of time now. Chris R says, if it's done without consent, does that mean it's void? Yeah, it is. Any contract has to satisfy the law's contract, doesn't it? And if it doesn't, it's void. But you'd have to take it in at that equity. You know, but like others have said, you've got to be absolutely precision if you go into chancery. But if you're seeing yourself there, even on the trust stuff, you don't really want to be going to law. You want to, or any issues you might be having with your own trusts, etc. You want to go straight to chancery, because that's where you're going to get the accepted acknowledgement that the beneficiary, everything there is the beneficiaries, without it being in his name as such. That's the accepted in equity. At law, it isn't. So at law, you run the risk of the trustee running off with you. Which is what a civil state does at all points. Zoom in. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to pay attention a bit more, because I have watched other people on this and they can do it right, so there must be a way I'm doing something wrong. I've actually learned something tonight when I had a bash on it again, so I need to actually focus and get stuck into it, and I never do. But doesn't people like MPs have parliamentary privilege? Nobody's above the law. Unless you're man. And then you're way above all that. The only law you're operating on is biblical law. But you better be operating according to it. You can't just pretend. Because you can put it down on paper, but then you can undermine it in 5 minutes if you're gobshiting. and you're sure immediately you haven't got a fucking clue what you're talking about, and you just nicked it off internet. It doesn't work like that. You know, if you're gonna be man, if you want to be present yourself as man, you better make sure you're a man first. You know what I'm saying? And no other man can tell a man what to do. He's living under the laws of the Creator, yeah, which are very few. All the laws in the Bible are Mosaic laws, laws of man, all of it. Privy Council deeply embedded. Did have to be. That's where you have to have it. If the Privy Council is the cabinet, which is what it's suggesting, then that's what's pushing all this stuff. You know what I mean? 20 years ago, more ex-soldier police station crew hinted to it, but I never laid eyes on it. The book, Bricks to Babel. No, I haven't. That'd be an interesting one. Friends of mine has been looking into the pedo stuff, Sean. Yeah, no problem. I mean, I am savvy with it. I mean, I did a lot of study of it many, many years ago, as soon as I got on internet, actually. Before that, I'd actually read some compendiums of, files on these twisted people. But you can't get away from the paedophilia side of things. And as you can see now, the reason it's so important to these networks is because it gives them absolute power. Absolute power over the victim of it, you know. Sad but true, but that's the situation we find ourselves in. Yeah, John Lydon was on it, he was. But this is the thing, everybody knew. But that 60s, LSD, free love, everything tittle-tattle, ooh, Dick Emery, all this. That mindset that were created from that, in essence, kept people from getting cross about that, because it was just sex. And unfortunately, that's the situation we're in. The baby boomers were the victims of that. And as the auditors are now showing us, these security guys that don't know their arse from their elbow in the main, baby boomers. Captain Mandarin. So, with that diatribe, I'll say, have a good week, folks. Till the next time.
Run again.